The story begins with Momo's father asking her to deliver medicine to the Verdigris house. Momo tries to clean up a wound from one of her drug experiments, and one of the famous princesses of this house named Perrin greets her. Momo's grandmother asks her if she'd like to be a courtesan and encourages Momo to leave. She admits this is a daily thing with her grandmother, and Momo doesn't want anything to do with that occupation. Momo toys around in the garden and gets kidnapped by 3 men. Meanwhile, Lady Liyue gives birth to the nation's prince, and 3 months passes by and Momo's concerned about her father. Since being kidnapped, Momo believes she was ransomed or sold off to someone and misses her old life as an apothecary. She tells about the rear palace, and she says it holds a garden of women who give birth to the emperor's children and don't allow men. Momo claims only the emperor, his kin, and eunuchs can enter the rear palace. She says the serving girls are disposable. After she points her co-worker Xiaolin in the right direction, Momo continues explaining the rear palace lifestyle. She says most servants are illiterate. Despite her status, Momo would rather work in the lower class, get paid, and leave in 2 years than work toward a higher palace rank. We cut to Lady Liyue and her child, who looks ill. 2 gentlemen, one being Master Jinshi, converse about her condition and notice another woman's child is in poor condition. Jinshi tells her the physician is busy and may not have time to cater to her daughter, Xiaolin. While some servants gossip about the princess and her kin's illness, Xiaolin and her discuss a rear palace curse. Xiaolin states all 3 of the emperor's children have died due to illnesses, and says the doctor visited Lady Jiuqiu and Liyue and confirmed they're in terrible shape, confirming the curse's legitimacy. They discuss how Liyue is the emperor's current consort, meaning she's a very important figure to the emperor. Despite giving birth to his son, Xiaolin says there's a rumor brewing that the emperor likes Jiuqiu more. Momo senses a power struggle at play and ponders over Liyue's illness, and although she doesn't want to get involved, something urges her to look into Liyue's situation more. Suddenly, Momo notices Liyue and Jiuqiu confront each other publicly and questions why the doctor hasn't figured out a cure for their illnesses. She examines the situations closely and believes she knows the answer to their problems, but she doesn't know how to convey this intel to Liyue and Jiuqiu. Unfortunately, Liyue's son passes away. A month passes and Jinshi visits Jiuqiu to ask her something, and Jiuqiu tells Jinshi that when she visited the Crystal Pavilion to have her daughter examined, she found a note attached to a rhododendron plant. It said not to let any babies near the plant since the white face power it holds is poisonous, and she asks Jinshi to uncover who sent the note. Jinshi has a hunch Momo sent the letter after briefly encountering her during Liyue and Jiuqiu's scuffle. Meanwhile, a man tells Momo she must report to the matron of the serving women immediately with other serving girls. Jinshi introduces himself as the palace's manager as all the girls except Momo adore his dashing looks. Jinshi tells the other girls to leave except for Momo, and she realizes Jinshi signaled her out since she's the only servant who can read. Jinshi brings Momo to Jiuqiu's room, and she thanks her for saving Shiling's life with the note. Momo says she may have mistaken her for someone else, but Jinshi takes out the note and says the fabric the person used to create it is made from the clothing serving girls wear. Jinshi asks Momo to explain why she put the flower on the windowsill, and Momo explains how the high-end powder courtesans used which led to Jiuqiu, Liyue, and their children's illnesses. Momo says she used to work as an apothecary and knows about things of this nature. Jiuqiu presents Jinshi with a specific power the nurse used for her child, and she reveals she tried telling Liyue about the message, but Liyue wouldn't pay her any mind. Jiuqiu tells Momo she'll be her new lady-in-waiting, also known as female assistant. Momo leaves and panics because she wants to keep a low profile. We see 2 soldiers falling ill due to poison being inserted in their food. A man named Gaoshin informs Jinshi of this matter and says the village leader is in custody due to possibly aiding the barbarians. They discuss Jiuqiu and Momo's current working relationship, and Jinshi confirms Jiuqiu has 4 female servants working for her while Liyue has over 10. Although this makes Jiuqiu look lesser than Liyue, they state how Jiuqiu is more wise and cautious. Jinshi tells Gaoshin he'll keep an eye on Momo to prevent her from using her apothecary knowledge for nefarious purposes. Jinshi tries seducing Momo the following day and asks her to serve Jiuqiu well. Momo meets Hongniang, Jiuqiu's head lady-in-waiting, shows her around the Jade Pavilion. She meets the other lady-in-waiting named Yinghua, Gyun, and Ailan. They tell Momo that Jiuqiu doesn't have servant girls and has her ladies-in-waiting perform tasks for her, and Momo offers to help, but the girl says she must go to her room as Jiuqiu has a special task for her. The girls gossip about Momo's arm wound a bit as Momo sits in her room and ponders, and Jinshi tells Momo that she's tasked with tasting poison. He says her previous tester used to get poisoned by the meals people prep for her, and Jiuqiu herself got poisoned a few times. As she tests the food for poison, Momo confirms she experimented with many toxic chemicals back home and grew an immunity to poison. Jinshi and the others are baffled by Momo's enjoyment of the task, and Momo tells Hong Ying it's best to switch to silver plates since they react to poison. Hong Ying says she should have mentioned her apothecary background when she arrived here because she would have gotten paid more. Momo says she refused to let people know of her knowledge because she didn't want her kidnappers to make money off of her genius. Hong Ying gives Momo her payment for the day and Momo realizes it's almost equal to her regular salary, but this money won't go to her kidnappers. We see Momo performing more poison testing duties and she started to grow bored with it all, and Jinshi tasks Momo with testing some buns he received from someone and Momo says they're safe. However, Jinshi doesn't want to indulge in them and tells Momo about the incident involving the soldiers and the village leader. Momo asks him about the location they ate at and what utensils they used, and she presents him with a theory regarding the firewood the soldiers used during their feast and says it could have had poison in it. Jinshi asks Momo if she can make an aphrodisiac and Momo's excited by the task and says she can do it. Momo leaves the next day to visit the palace's doctor in Gaoshan. He leads her to a room where she can make the aphrodisiac, and as she attempts to make it, she notices they've supplied her with less cacao than expected. They supply her with more ingredients and Momo completes the dish, but she decides to make some brownies with it and stores them away in secret. When she returns to the area, Hong Ying scolds her because the other lady in waiting ate the brownies and experienced side effects. After presenting the aphrodisiac and other drugs to Gyokyu, Jinshi praises Momo for her effort in a tense way, but we see a strange man looking at a female from a distance. Yinghua, Gyuan, and Alan performing cleaning tasks and reminiscing about their time spent here so far. One of them checks on Momo and discusses a rumor about the mysterious spirit that's haunting the rear palace. Momo meets with Siolan to discuss this rumor further, and Momo contemplates if this is a hoax or if there's actual spirit at play here, but she deduces it's a mere ghost story and she and Siolan have nothing to feed her. Momo visits the rear palace's doctor and informs the audience that he treats her with care despite the tension they had before. Jinshi interrupts Momo's meal session and Momo wonders why he keeps bothering her, and Momo wonders if Jinshi has a higher position at the palace than he lets on because he's always roaming around like he's got nothing better to do. Jinshi asks Momo if there's a curse for sleepwalking other than medicine, and Momo promises to get to the bottom of the spirit issue. Gaoshan escorts Momo somewhere and asks her if she can stop looking down upon Jinshi. Gaoshan introduces Momo to concubine Fuyu, who will be bestowed to a military officer as a reward soon, and the doctor informs Momo that Fuyu, a skilled dancer, stumbled during her first showing, and the emperor pays her no mind, and he explains this led to her sleepwalking issue because she was shocked she was being treated as a reward. Momo and Gaoshan leave and spy on Fuyu. Momo compares her to a cotton roach and it's the ability to change states, and she asks Siolan to explain the spirit story more to her. Siolan brings up Fuyu appearing from the north side and Momo comes up with a theory. Momo meets with Gyokyu to discuss sleepwalking and how Fuyu's situation with it could relate to a case she recalls involving a woman at a brothel from her past. Momo concludes that Fuyu needs someone to help her cancel the exchange deal to solve her sleepwalking dilemma. Momo states that Fuyu was ordered to never leave her room and eunuchs were in charge of watching her. A few days pass and Gyokyu notices something wrong with Momo, and as Momo watches Fuyu leave the rear palace, Gyokyu confronts Momo about her internal issues. Momo is worried about Fuyu's fate involving the emperor and her beloved military officer. Momo and Gyokyu watch as Fuyu reunites with the officer and heads off. Momo wonders what type of medicine would love to make as someone confronts Gyokyu in her quarters, and the man telling Gyokyu he has a request for Momo. We see Liua's female entourage scolding Momo for bringing her low-class food, and she reflects on why she's in the presence of these women in the first place. After doing some poison checkups for the emperor, he tasks Momo with looking after Liua. Momo's surprised Liua's staff are treating her poorly since she's serving her under imperial orders. Momo discusses her task with Siolan and she assumes Liua is still suffering from the poison. Momo visits the kitchen to help Liua's cooks whip up a dietary meal for Liua to expel the poison in her body, but she keeps getting rejected by Liua's servants because they deem her meals inadequate. Momo acknowledges the meals they want to feed her but feels they're too heavy for Liua's weakened stomach, and Jinshi notices Momo's struggles and entices Liua's servants to let Momo assist Liua with her sickly problems. Momo notices something on Liua's face and notices something off about her makeup. She approaches one of her servants and slaps one of them for their foolish actions, and Momo drags them aside and pours the makeup the woman used on Liua on the servant. She reminds the woman that the makeup is poison and that she shouldn't be using it on Lihua, and Momo orders the servant to wash their face and for the others to clean up the mess she made. While Momo treats Lihua and guides Lihua's ladies-in-waiting, she confirms the woman who hid the powder got put in confinement, and as for the eunuch who recovered the powder, he was punished for flagellation. Lihua asks Momo why she won't let her die, and Momo says she could simply stop eating, but she knows Lihua continues eating her meals because she wants to live. Suddenly, the lady-in-waiting who got put in confinement tells Momo she's allowed to serve Lihua again. She asks Momo to get rest and promises not to make the same mistake again. After 2 months, Lihua makes a decent recovery, finding the strength to walk again, but before Momo leaves, Lihua asks her if she thinks she can give birth to children again. Momo says she can try but can't give her a solid answer, and Lihua realizes the Emperor doesn't care for her as much as Gyokyu, but Momo thinks she might still have a chance. Momo whispers to Lihua, stating she should use her bodily charm to seduce the Emperor, but we see someone from the royal palace suffering from a curse. Jinshi sparring with a man named Basin, and the next day he ponders the scenario involving Lady Lihua's lady-in-waiting and Momo. Momo finds a special ingredient she's been searching for, but before she uses it for her purposes, she visits Xiaolin and shares a meal with her. After gossiping about a rumor with her, Momo visits the palace's doctor and informs him of the mushroom she found during her break, and he helps her make a meal out of it. Suddenly, a person from the palace enters the room and informs the doctor about a curse that spread to his hands, and Momo examines the man's wound and thinks it's a weird rash. The doctor asks Momo if she can make an ointment for the gentleman. While Momo is preparing the ointment, the man explains the origins behind his issue to her and the doctor, and Momo says it must be related to fireworks and says her ointment should help the man out. Jinshi arrives and asks Momo to follow him somewhere to discuss more about the rash issues. After helping him out, Momo leaves, but Jinshi tasks her with making him some of that mushroom stew she had with the doctor. While alone, Momo ponders the colored wood tablets that are related to the rash issues cropping up in the palace, and she wonders if it has to be code-related. Momo returns to Gyokyu's residence, and her lady-in-waiting friends give her a dress she's required to wear at the upcoming garden party, and they explain 2 other concubines will be attending the party besides Lihua and Gyokyu. They're named Lishu and Abduo. Gyokyu tells Momo everyone must comply with the Emperor's demands but can do anything they please at the party, and Momo heads to her office to create things that'll help her prepare for the festivities. Hongning enters her quarters and Momo shows her a neat underrobe that'll help her stay warm at the party. She asks Momo if she can make one for everyone and Momo complies. Meanwhile, someone informs Jinshi that they're not finding any luck in recovering people who suffered from the rash. Jinshi meets with the other concubines before speaking with Gyokyu, and he notices Momo's freckles are gone and admires her new look. Momo reveals she's always worn makeup in every encounter, but instead of wanting to look beautiful, she made herself uglier to avoid complications with sexual deviance. Jinshi apologizes for not helping Momo deal with her kidnappers, but she says it's okay. Jinshi bestows Momo with his hairpin, and she asks the girls and Gyokyu what it means when a man does so. The party officially begins, and we see a glimpse of a woman in the dark. Momo and Xiaolin observing the festivities behind a curtain, and Xiaolin points out Empress Dowager and tells Momo she gave birth to the Emperor and his brother, but his brother was too sick to attend the garden party. Afterwards, the two stumble upon an argument between Gyokyu and Lihua's ladies-in-waiting groups, and Momo ends the fight by reminding one of Lihua's ladies of an incident between them. Momo then notices another proxy war happening between Abduo and Lishu's lady-in-waiting groups, and learns Abduo has been the longest concubine while Lishu's a young newcomer. She learns they have a daughter and mother-in-law relationship. After receiving an item from a man named Leheku, Momo reunites with Lihua and her ladies-in-waiting. Lihua bestows her with a hairpin and leaves. Gyokyu's ladies-in-waiting are baffled by how many items Momo received and are unsure how Gyokyu will take all this, and Momo visits the party's main event area and observes her surroundings and the people present. She participates in a taste-testing activity and notices another tester struggling, and deduces this dish doesn't have poison in it and receives a soup dish to try. After testing this next dish, Momo learns it has poison in it and flees somewhere. Several men are alarmed by this news and warn everyone. Meanwhile, Jinshi arrives and learns one of the ministers drank the poisoned soup and collapsed, and Jinshi finds Momo and says he's taking her to the infirmary. Momo ensures to him that she's okay and wishes she could have swallowed the poison. He informs Momo that someone drank the soup to see if Momo was lying and ended up collapsing, and Momo takes out a bag of emetic agents and says the minister should use it. After ridding herself of all the poison in her body, Momo asks Jinshi to bring Lishu to her to discuss the poisoned soup incident. Lishu arrives and Momo notices she has bumps on her arm, and she deduces Lishu's allergic to the mackerel they eat at the garden party. Momo realizes Lishu's original dish was swapped with Gyokyu's meal. Lishu's food taster feels terrible for not realizing this sooner. Momo tells the taster she's prepared a note for her to take with her for emergencies. Lishu and her taster leave, and Jinshi ponders if someone had the meals swapped and poisoned on purpose. Jinshi and his cohort are contemplating if this is related to the scenario involving the wooden tablets. Momo wakes up from a dream involving her and her father. She visits Gyokyu and asks her if she can use the parlor, and Gyokyu allows Momo to use it and asks Han Ning to escort her to the area. Momo is presented with the same soup someone sabotaged at the garden party, and she investigates the bowl and concludes 4 people made contact with it. She believes an outsider who wasn't supposed to touch the dish poisoned it. Momo believes Lishu's taste tester swapped the meal on purpose for harassment purposes but didn't know it was poisoned, and Gaoshin can't believe a lady-in-waiting would attempt to bully a high-ranking concubine. Momo reminds Gaoshin that this is an assumption on her part, and she believes Lishu's ladies-in-waiting have a vendetta against her, though concubines typically have beef with other concubines. Momo believes their grudge stems from Lishu becoming the previous emperor's concubine at a young age. Since she's planning to wed her deceased husband's son now, her ladies-in-waiting may find her actions distasteful, and Momo says she protected Lishu's food taster the prior day because she understands they live demanding lives. Gaoshin visits Jinshi and tells him everything Momo told him about the incident, and Jinshi believes this is all an inside job and wishes he wasn't so tired. The next morning, Momo converses with Seolin about hairpins. Seolin says she can leave the rear palace now, and Momo begs her to explain what she means by that. And Seolin says when a woman receives a hairpin, they receive permission to leave the palace as long as they're being escorted by a specific male. She says Momo can ask someone to remove her from the palace too, and someone informs Leheku that Momo wants to meet him somewhere, and Leheku wonders what he must do to turn down Momo. Momo visits Leheku, hands him a hairpin, and asks if she can visit her home. Leheku's not pleased that Momo's trying to exploit him just so she can visit her family. Momo offers Leheku a chance to attend a flower viewing session at the Verdigris house with 3 highly established princesses named Mei, Joka, and Perrin, and Leheku accepts Momo's offer. Jinshi arrives at Gyokyu's quarters and she tells him Momo left the palace and is on a 3-day homecoming trip. Leheku and Momo arrive at the Verdigris house and Leheku leaves with a girl to meet with Perrin, and the elderly proprietor asks Momo why she vanished from the district for months. Momo gives the proprietor half of her salary for assisting her with Leheku's dating regimes, and she tells Momo to visit her father. Momo spends time catching up with her father on her predicament. While asleep, her father is puzzled that Momo ended up at the rear palace and holds the position she has currently. Momo observes her father tending crops in the field and bumps into a young girl who takes her somewhere. She learns several people are severely ill and need her help, and Momo assists the others with tending to these injured folks' problems. After telling Momo the people are more stable now, her female helpers leave the room to make everyone tea, and Momo examines the area for clues about what happened. The young girl returns and gives Momo the charcoal she needs, and Momo jots something down on a text plate and asks the girl to fetch her father. Later, her father arrives with some herbs and they plan to mix it with Momo's charcoal concoction. They leave to feed the injured people this medicine, and the women from earlier feed the injured people the medicine while Momo and her father share theories about what happened to them. Momo and her father visit an elderly woman for tea, and she contemplates the injured folks' situation more and spots the young girl outside of the women's quarters. She leaves for a bit to follow the girl, and Momo spots her with a knife and notices she's attempting to murder the injured male for some reason. They tussle for a bit, causing one of the women to stop them, and the woman asks Momo to chat with her. The woman reveals the injured man was a womanizer. She reveals the young girl's older sister was a victim of his and that she sought vengeance against him. After discussing things with the two, Momo returns home with her father and acknowledges how dangerous the little girl's tactics are. At home, Momo ponders the situation and realizes that it was actually a murder and not a double suicide. After contemplating it more in town, Momo visits a bathhouse to unwind, and she meets Mei, and the two chat with each other about life. Momo returns to the palace with Leheku the next day, and she notices Jinshi's infuriated with her. He asks Momo to meet him in the parlor. Momo visits Jinshi, who is upset Momo doesn't understand the significance behind hairpins and that she chose to go home with Leheku and not him, and tells Jinshi she offered Leheku a night of blissful dreams, making Jinshi believe the two got intimate with each other. She leaves the room and Han Yang bonks her on the head, and Gyokyu laughs at her. Gaoshin asks Jinshi when will he start working and stop sulking about Momo, but a man rushes into Jinshi's quarters and informs him that something terrible happened to Kaonan. After witnessing what happened to himself, Jinshi and Gaoshin inform Gyokyu and Momo about his death the following day. Although Momo doesn't feel bad about Kaonan's death, she explains the issues of consuming too much alcohol. Jinshi tells Momo that Kaonan knows how to handle alcohol and argues someone might be responsible for his death, and Jinshi presents Momo with the alcohol Kaonan consumed and shares more info about what he and Gaoshin found at the crime scene, and they head to Jinshi's quarters to discuss the situation further. Gaoshin presents Momo with a full report while Jinshi shows her Kaonan's broken bottle. After licking and examining the broken bottle, Momo deduces there was too much salt in the drink, leading to Kaonan's death, and she argues that Kaonan didn't know how much salt was in the drink after learning about his habits through the report Gaoshin gave her. Momo argues that Kaonan lost the ability to taste salt, and this is possibly due to Kaonan experiencing immense stress or having an imbalanced diet over losing his family. Momo says she's not responsible for finding the culprit who added the extra salt to his drink, but confirms someone did do it, and Gaoshin leaves the room and Momo spots Jinshi wearing a talisman signaling to her that he's in mourning, and Jinshi reveals that Kaonan was an important person to him. Jinshi presents Momo with a gourd of alcohol for her assistance, and after an amusing discussion over an alcohol-themed bill, we see a woman drowning. Someone informs the palace's doctor and Momo about the incident. Momo refuses to touch the body because she wants to abide by her apothecary master's orders, and she says humans can become ingredients for medicine as we cut to a scene of her father knowing she'd start robbing graves if she started touching dead bodies. Momo, Jinshi, and Gaoshin return to Jinshi's quarters to discuss this incident, while Momo's unsure if the maid committed suicide or if she was murdered. She walks by a plant and contemplates the idea of death and its relation to fate, and after contemplating all the cases she's been involved with, Momo asks Jinshi if she could die by poison if the time ever called for it. Jinshi doesn't know why Momo would suggest such a thing, and Momo leaves and she reflects on the maid's predicament and says she heard rumors that she was at the garden party poison incident. Moreover, she heard people found a suicide note at the scene, so people ruled her case as suicide and closed it. As for the burnt arm case, Gaoshin informs Jinshi that they found the culprit behind it all, and he says the Garnet Pavilion's Fengming, the head lady in waiting for Lady Ah Duo, is the perpetrator, and Jinshi pondering the situation further. Momo and Seolin discusses Lady Ah Duo's servant's suicide case, and Seolin says she heard that Lady Ah Duo might get replaced by a younger concubine soon, but Momo believes Ah Duo might lose her title because she might be incapable of producing children, which is a must for the rear palace's system. She wonders if Lady Liuo will meet a similar fate if she can't produce a baby, and Momo gives Seolin leftovers from a previous tea party event and departs. She returns to the Jade Pavilion, discovering they're holding a second tea party, and she learns Lady Lishu's attending this one and examines everyone's behavior at this party. While everyone's seated, Momo studies Lishu's servants and ponders if they're still actively harassing her like before. After Lady Gyokyu serves Lishu some honey-flavored tea, Lishu refuses to drink it. Momo notices Lishu's servants gossiping about Lishu's behavior toward the beverage. Therefore, Momo secretly assists Lishu by signaling to Gyokyu that the drink is no good, and Gyokyu asks her Aelin to provide them with hot ginger tea. Gyokyu ladies in waiting kick Momo out of the area so she can get rest, and Momo encounters Jinshi, who brings up Lady Ah Duo's servant who allegedly committed suicide. After sharing her opinion, Jinshi tells Momo to help the Garnet Pavilion with a few tasks. Momo visits Ah Duo's pavilion and examines everyone. After greeting Ah Duo's head lady in waiting Fengming leads Momo and others to a book room and asks them to air the books out and other tasks. While tackling these duties, Momo examines her surroundings and wonders if the mastermind behind the Lishu poison incident came from here, and she breaks down the possibilities of Fengming being the culprit, highlighting what she gained from committing such an act. After learning about Fengming's history with honey, Momo spots Lishu at the Garnet Pavilion. Then she reports her findings to Jinshi. Although she doesn't have much to report, she tells Jinshi it's possible Fengming could be the culprit, and Jinshi presents Momo with a honey reward, but Momo refuses to eat the honey from his fingers. While uncomfortable, Momo conjures up a theory about the current predicament, but suddenly, Gyokyu arrives and scolds Jinshi for his strange actions, and Momo departs and meets with Lishu. She asks her questions about her concerns about honey, and Lishu says she avoids honey because many nurses told her it's a life-threatening dish. Lishu's ladies-in-waiting scold Momo for probing Lishu, and Momo knows Lishu's ladies-in-waiting couldn't care less about Lishu. However, she tells them if they have issues with her asking Lishu questions of this nature, they can report their issues with Momo to Jinshi. After asking Lishu about her relationship with Fengming, Momo takes a stroll around the palace with Gaoshin, and she asks Gaoshin if he knows a place where she can obtain data about past events that occurred in the rear palace. Gaoshin takes Momo to the court library, and Momo learns about the current emperor and Abduo's foster sibling relationship. Moreover, she learns Dr. Lumen, her adoptive father, helped Abduo give birth to her son, and Momo questions her father's actions. Momo arrives at the Garnet Pavilion to deliver something to Lady Abduo and meets Fengming and tells her she'd like to discuss things with her. She examines the area and notices Fengming's packed her belongings and asks Fengming when she plans on leaving. Momo informs Fengming that she knows Abduo is being ordered to leave the pavilion to make way for the new high-ranking concubine. Additionally, Momo knows Abduo can't produce children and asks her for more information about what happened on the day Abduo was attempting to give birth, and Momo argues this matter is relevant to her since her father attended the birth and was responsible for helping Abduo see it through. After bringing up Abduo's child's early demise, she asks Fengming if she feels guilty for failing to look after him while Abduo was unwell at the time. Then Momo delves deeper into Abduo's child's cause of death and argues against face powder being the cause, and she shows Fengming a box with a flour and syrup inside. Momo highlights how some flours and syrups contain material that can be harmful to children. Therefore, due to countless mistakes including his treatment during Abduo's child's birth, Momo's father Lumen was banished from the rear palace. Momo says someone informed Fengming early on about this poisonous flour phenomenon, but Fengming covered it all up to prevent Abduo from discovering that Fengming is responsible for her child's demise. Momo reveals the person who relayed this honey and poison intel to Fengming was Lishu, and she highlights how Lishu and Abduo had a great connection. However, when Lishu told Fengming her experience with honey as a baby, Fengming forcefully turned Lishu away from the pavilion. Upon learning of Lishu's new concubine status and fearing her past mistakes would come to light, she poisoned Lishu's suit during the garden party event. After hearing Momo out, Fengming informs her how much she idolizes Abduo and how disappointed she is in herself for taking away her child. After presenting Fengming with an ultimatum for her crimes, Momo returns to her quarters. The next day, Momo visits Jinshi to discuss Abduo and Fengming's outcome. At night, Momo sits atop the rear palace's wall. Abduo approaches Momo and takes a minute to reflect on everything that's happened so far. Abduo departs and Momo does the same, but she trips but gets saved by Jinshi. The two share a somewhat intimate moment for the night. In the morning, Momo attends Abduo's departure event, and she hands Jinshi her concubine crown and notices the two look alike. She questions if Jinshi was involved in the baby incident in some form. However, she drops this thought when she and everyone else notice Lishu running toward Abduo, and we cut to Gaoshin and Jinshi in Jinshi's quarters. Gaoshin presents Jinshi with documents about Fengming's family and connections, while Jinshi looks at a note with Momo's name on it. We see Jinshi inform the audience what happened to Fengming's relatives after she was executed, and he explains they were corporally punished and robbed of their wealth. Jinshi says he has the names of everyone in Fengming's family, in addition to those who are connected with them, and the people who kidnapped Momo have connections with Fengming's family. Jinshi questions if he should cover this intel up or not. By hiding this information, Jinshi argues he'll prevent Momo from leaving the rear palace, but he's conflicted because he's unsure if that's what Momo would want. We cut to Momo and Shidolin discussing a mass firing event that happened recently, and it involved people with ties to Fengming's family getting dismissed because of their connections with them. Concerned about her predicament, Momo leaves and confronts Jinshi about the mass firing incident. She asks him what'll happen to her. Jinshi hands her the document he received from Gaoshin, and she asks him if she'll be fired because of her ties to the Fengming family. Jinshi doesn't give her a solid answer, but he asks her what she wants, and Momo doesn't want to lose the good life she has at the Jade Pavilion, but doesn't want to look like she's begging to keep her job, so Momo tells Jinshi she's willing to do whatever he says and asks him not to fire her. Unfortunately, Momo loses her position and returns to Pleasure District, and Gaoshin recognizes Jinshi's upset about this ordeal and realizes he didn't force Momo to stay because he didn't want to use her. Elsewhere, Momo's getting pampered by one of the three princesses of the Verdigris house, and she plans to attend a nobility banquet with them, and Momo says she received a lot of money when she left the rear palace, which helped her prevent herself from being sold off. Momo and the others arrive at the nobility banquet, and we receive a montage of the three princesses performing for the nobles while Momo is shown assisting the nobles with their needs. Momo notices a man looking depressed and interacts with him, and she learns it's Jinshi, and he asks her why she chose to flee the palace and why she's dressed like a courtesan, and Momo says she's earning money and doesn't take personal customers. Jinshi asks Momo if he can buy her, and Momo thinks it would be a good idea to work there again, and wonders why she quit, but Momo reminds him that he's the one who fired her. Momo tells Jinshi that the only thing she doesn't like about her job is her inability to experiment with poison, and Jinshi laughs and tells Momo that experimenting with poison is a ridiculous desire. After that, the two get moderately intimate with each other, resulting in some folks taking note of their situation. After the three princesses interrogate Momo about Jinshi, we cut to Momo working on something for Grams at the Verdigris house. Then Grams arrives and asks Momo to look at a patient for her. Afterwards, Momo baths in the bathing house and reflects on her experience at the Rear Palace, and Grams arrives and the two discuss Momo's debt repayment plans and if she's interested in returning to the Rear Palace. At night, Momo heads outside to ponder her experiences at the Rear Palace, and Momo questions what life is planned for her and heads inside her adoptive father's home. The next day, Jinshi and Gaoshan arrive at Grams' workplace, and he presents Grams with a briefcase full of money and Momo with a strange plant, and Momo assumes Jinshi wants to purchase her. We see Jinshi attending a meeting with the Emperor, and reflects on his status and abilities. He plans to serve the Emperor until he has the chance to choose his path in life. Elsewhere, Meimi provides Momo with makeup for work purposes. Perrin and Joka arrive. They, alongside Meimi, ask Momo if she can bring in more customers from her new workplace, and Momo leaves the Verdigris house to return to her father's home. During her journey, she reflects on all that's happened to her up to this point. Upon arriving, Momo tells Lumen she doesn't know what to bring with her to the Rear Palace, and Lumen suggests she leaves her mortar, pestle, and notebook behind because bringing these items will make her look like she's plotting a poisoning. However, he says Momo may have the opportunity to bring these items with her over time, and Momo ponders her life again while sleeping next to Lumen at night. Meimi and the others bid farewell to Momo in the morning. During the carriage ride, Momo blames Jinshi for all the attention she's receiving at the moment. They'd arrive at Jinshi's home, but Momo is distraught that she'll be working here instead of at the Rear Palace, and Gaoshan tells Momo she can't return to her former workplace since she got fired. Surin, Jinshi's attendant, introduces herself to Momo and gives her a tour of the outer court. After Momo sets up her room, she reunites with Surin, Jinshi, and Gaoshan. Jinshi says she won't be doing servant labor work anymore, but instead he wants her to take the court lady exam. In the morning, Momo visits Surin and learns that Surin likes to handle Jinshi's personal tasks alone. Momo and Surin visit Jinshi and Gaoshan, and Momo notices Jinshi has his shirt open, revealing his muscular physique. After noticing Jinshi's laid-back energy, Momo realizes why Surin and Gaoshan are the only ones who can enter Jinshi's quarters. Jinshi offers Momo a new room to stay in, but she wants one with a stable. Realizing what Momo's up to, Jinshi tells Momo he will not provide her with a stable, and Gaoshan gives Momo a thorough tour of the outer court, and Momo hopes she'll remember everything. After giving Momo information about the outer court's director of Waters' location, they stumble upon Surin performing an important task, and Surin asks Momo to deliver some charcoal to Jinshi's office. After delivering the goods, Momo notices the other court ladies nearby, and they're not too happy with her, but they confront Momo and ask her why she's directly connected with Jinshi. Momo asks the woman if she's jealous, resulting in her slapping Momo in the face. Realizing that was a bad question to ask her, Momo provides the women with multiple questions and answers. After showing her a burn injury she gave herself one night, the women depart. Jinshi overhears the discussion and reminds Momo to continue studying for that court lady exam. While studying, Momo opens the box Jinshi presented to her, an old granny from before. Momo takes the exam the next day and Jinshi asks her why she failed. Momo retaliates and asks Jinshi why he thinks she'd pass it, but ultimately Momo becomes Jinshi's personal servant. While traversing the outer court, Momo stumbles upon several plants and admires them, and she finds herself in an undisclosed location, and one of the court ladies tells her she shouldn't be here. Momo gets a whiff of a peculiar scent that reminds her of the military, while a monocle-wearing figure stalks Momo from afar. While two men meet and exchange a peculiar item at night, we see a woman being escorted by several women to her throne. Elsewhere, Gyoku's thrilled about Momo's developments and confesses those feelings to Hongniang. At the outer court, Surin asks Momo why she's not tending to her assigned office duties. Momo flees to the office and notices that Jinshi and Gaoshan are inside, and Jinshi informs Momo about the Garnet Pavilions' new pure consort. He says the Rear Palace officials want Momo to serve as all four concubines' teacher. Momo hands Jinshi her invoice, gathers her teaching materials, and heads with him and Gaoshan to the teaching location. Many girls crowd our trio because they're infatuated with Jinshi, and she tells the girls only the high-rank concubines can enter the pavilion. Momo uses Jinshi's words against him to prevent him from discovering the truth about her teaching equipment. Then Momo spots Gyokyu, Lishu, and Adu at the event and shares charming words about the ladies-in-waiting who have accompanied them here, and the new concubine, Lady Lulan, catches Momo's attention for a bit. Momo then conducts today's lesson and presents all 4 concubines with their learning materials. While Lihua and Gyokyo show interest in Momo's lessons, Lishu is startled by her teachings. Simultaneously, Lulan is the least interested in Momo's lessons. Momo catches Jinshi eavesdropping behind the door, and Jinshi asks Momo what he taught them, but Momo says he should ask the emperor. At night, Momo hears several guards patrolling the area, and she wants to get involved but chooses not to because she's worried about what Surin would think. We shift to the guard's perspective on the situation and learn our monocle-wearing gentleman named Laken. Laken observes a burn structure and someone asks him if he's uncovered something, and he denies finding anything important, and we receive a brief shot of the item Laken exchanged with someone from before. The next day, Momo cleans up things in Jinshi's office and notices him working hard, and Gaoshin presents Momo with a coat to help her stay warm. However, Gaoshin tells Momo this is a gift from Jinshi. Momo stumbles upon the same plant garden from the previous episodes and admires them. She then spots Leheku discussing something with another gentleman. She greets Leheku and informs the audience that Leheku fell in love with Perrin. She speculates he's working harder for promotional purposes. Momo informs Leheku about her new position, and Leheku says he's currently investigating the incident involving the burned structure nearby. While Momo investigates the area, she delves into the palace's problematic and peaceful history. Momo uncovers the strange item Laken exchanged with the gentleman, which happens to be a smoking pipe. Momo connects the pipe to the things she's discovered in this scene, and she comes up with a theory and rushes over to a nearby warehouse. Leheku trails behind, and Momo asks Leheku if she can use some items found inside it. Outside, Momo builds something with assistance from Leheku's friend. Momo warns Leheku to stand aside because this project of hers will explode. Leheku ignores her warnings, resulting in him sustaining minor injuries. After, Momo explains what caused the warehouse to explode and tells Leheku to relay this intel to the warehouseman to avoid future catastrophes. In her quarters, Momo examines the smoking pipe further, and she questions how a warehouseman got his hands on the pipe since it looks like a rare item. She plans to clean it up and examine it some more later. We then shift to a dining house, and a wealthy-looking man sulks about something. We see a few men gossiping about Leheku's investigation involving the burned warehouse. Laken overhears their conversation and wants them to share intel with him about it. Elsewhere, Gaoshin presents Momo with a scroll detailing a former case involving a raw pufferfish dish, and he says a former colleague told him that a similar incident occurred recently, which involved a bureaucrat eating a raw pufferfish and entering a coma. Gaoshin explains the cook who served the individuals involved in these cases didn't use pufferfish in the dish, but Gaoshin finds it odd that both gentlemen were negatively infected by the pufferfish because they both loved eating exotic meals. He notes pufferfish as being a favorite of the twos, and both the cooks claim their innocence and argue they used a different type of fish in both meals. Gaoshin tells Momo what happened to both men. Momo asks Gaoshin if he can secure more information for her so she can solve this case. Jinshi arrives and interrupts Momo's train of thought, but before the two have a deeper conversation about the incident, Momo leaves to Jinshi's disappointment. The next day, Gaoshin hands Momo the cook's notebook, and he says it should contain details about all the meals the victim received. Jinshi interrupts Momo's thinking process again, so she decides to let him in on the case she's attempting to unravel. While Surin pampers Jinshi, Momo asks Gaoshin to let her know when the case happened. Since it happened a week ago, Momo assumes the cook used winter vegetables, and Gaoshin mentions the cook likes using seaweed. With this intel, Momo asks Gaoshin if she can visit the cook's kitchen. Before she arrives at the kitchen, Momo meets a man named Basin, and the two head to the bureaucrat's mansion, and Basin tells Momo to follow his orders. The two head into the kitchen, and before Momo starts investigating, a man arrives, asking them why they're here. Basin convinces the man to let them continue their investigation, and we learn from one of the workers that this is his master's younger brother. Momo examines the area and finds a seaweed-filled pot. The servant ensures Momo that the seaweed isn't poisonous, and that it's his master's favorite dish. The younger brother asks Momo and Basin to leave. Momo and Basin depart, and Basin wonders why Momo backed down, and Momo reveals she wasn't backing down and shows Basin that she swiped some seaweed. She believes the seaweed was imported from the south but feels it'd be best to pinpoint where it came from. Momo meets with several men including Jinshi in a room somewhere. She presents them with 2 seaweed dishes, and Basin confirms the seaweed is the servant's master's southern-grown seaweed, but not during the winter times. Momo speculates it's possible the master's seaweed isn't eaten often in the south. Additionally, she believes the merchant learned that seaweed was the bureaucrat's favorite meal, so to profit off that knowledge, He had locals make a dish using salted seaweed. Momo tells Jinshi and Ko that the big issue they should be concerned with is who suggested the traitor bring the salted seaweed. Momo presents Jinshi and the others with various possibilities. The following day, we learn from Gaoshin that the master's younger brother was responsible for the pufferfish incident, why he did it, and how he learned about the seaweed's poison. In her quarters, Momo's upset she didn't get to try the poisonous seaweed. However, her mood changes when she remembers the gift Jinshi gave to her at the Verdigris house. Momo's enlightened attitude startles Jinshi, resulting in him banging his head on the wall. Surin tends to Jinshi's wound and Jinshi shares his grievances concerning a high military official that's been a family friend for years now. Momo feels he should stop dwelling on these matters. While sweeping, Momo senses something bad is about to happen soon. We cut to Lucan arriving in Jinshi's office. Jinshi argues that Lucan's angry with him because he chose Momo as his servant. Lucan reveals he had a great connection with a former Verdigris house Kurtzen, and he reveals he had ideas on purchasing this Kurtzen but chose not to. Lucan discusses the Kurtzen further and wishes he could have forced himself upon her. Lucan alludes to performing a nefarious stunt but holds back on discussing it further. Instead, Lucan asks Jinshi if Momo can look into uncovering a mystery surrounding a secret technique his former metalworker colleague developed. For Momo to take part in this new endeavor, Jinshi wants Lucan to give him more details about this case, and Momo realizes it's raining a lot more than normal. Jinshi informs Momo about the metalworker's secret technique case Lucan wants her to tackle, and he informs Momo about the metalworker's sons, what they obtained after their father's demise, and his final message to them regarding a tea party. He hands Momo a document that lists their address. Momo takes the document and realizes Basin will be accompanying her to this place. The younger brother escorts them to their workshop. Inside, they meet the two older brothers. Momo investigates the area and the objects inside. During her investigation, she pinpoints who is the eldest among the three. Additionally, Momo notices a strange mark on one of the object's surfaces. Before she examines it further, the eldest brother confronts her and wonders if she can solve this case. Basin says if they want them to solve it, they should provide them with better details. The brothers reiterate what Momo and Basin already know and show them the gifts their father left for each of them. Further, the brothers share their distinct issues with the gifts their father gave them, and Momo senses tension between the two elder brothers and their younger brother. The brothers' mother arrives and tells them to stop arguing. Their mother hands everyone tea and Momo develops a theory involving sunlight and the second brother's chest. Momo examines one of the chest keyholes the second brother mentioned earlier, and she wonders if something got lodged inside. She asks the second brother more questions about it. Momo ponders all the evidence and info she's received and develops a theory regarding the youngest brother's fishbowl and if he ever set it on the shelf with the marking on it. The brother informs Momo it used to be there because it once housed an old pet goldfish of theirs. Momo gets water, pours it into the fishbowl, and turns the bowl around to where its rose-like engraving faces her. The sunlight reflects off the glass and heats the chest's keyhole area. Momo tells the second brother to use his key to unlock the drawer. The brother hesitates at first but compiles, and they open the drawer and find a box containing another key. Momo deduces how this key came to be and uses it to unlock the remaining drawers. The drawers contain several minerals, and Momo realizes what the metalworker's intent was behind this ploy, and knows the youngest one knows too. As for the two eldest brothers, they have no clue what their father's intentions were. Before they leave, their younger brother stops them and tells them that their father's goal is to get them to work together. The two older brothers think that's absurd because they feel their father liked him the best. The youngest son shares his father's remarks about his brothers. Essentially, he tells them their father cared for them equally. Before Momo and Basin depart, Momo informs the youngest brother about Lumen and that he should visit him if he's ever feeling unwell. In Jinshi's office, Lucan and Jinshi discuss the metalwork case. Lucan informs Jinshi about the brothers' plans and Jinshi asks Lucan to share more details about his courtesan story. Lucan tells Jinshi he should direct his questions to someone else, and Lucan departs. Jinshi and Momo greet each other later, and Jinshi asks Momo if she can do his makeup for him. He interrogates Momo about the type of makeup she uses to give herself fake freckles, and Momo shares her wisdom with Jinshi, and Jinshi says he wants to look like a completely different individual. Momo says she can whip up the concoction overnight, and we cut to her doing so. She heads to Jinshi's quarters in the morning, and we see Jinshi getting pampered by Surin. Momo gets a whiff of Jinshi's fragrance and realizes he burned expensive incense, which will prohibit him from feeling like the average civilian. Momo says she knows what rich and ordinary people smell like, and she tells Gaoshin to fetch Jinshi clothes that haven't been washed yet. Momo applies some things to Jinshi's hair to give it that commoner aesthetic. Gaoshin returns with a smelly batch of clothes and Momo tells Jinshi to remove his clothes. Jinshi complies and Momo observes his muscular build. She tells Surin and Gaoshin to help her alter Jinshi's build, making him appear obese, and Momo tries putting feminine makeup on Jinshi out of spite, but Jinshi turns out beautiful as a result. Momo scraps that idea and applies makeup on Jinshi's face to make him look like a grotesque and poor person. Momo gives Jinshi an irritant to tamper with his vocals and provides him with cotton balls that'll help him change his face's shape. But before Momo leaves to visit her homeland, Gaoshin tells her that Jinshi's heading in her direction. He asks Momo if she can accompany him to his destination so Jinshi doesn't draw suspicion from others. Momo tries to deny the offer, but Surin says she can provide Momo with a disguise. During a carriage ride, Jinshi tells Momo to refer to him as Jinka. Additionally, he compliments Momo on her fashionable appearance, and Gaoshin leaves Jinshi and Momo somewhere and the two decide to go for a quick stroll. During this walk, Jinshi tells Momo he plans to visit a restaurant to meet an acquaintance of his. Meanwhile, we spot Basin observing the two from afar since Gaoshin hired him as Jinshi and Momo's bodyguard, and Momo shows interest in buying vegetables at a stand, but Jinshi says she can't because people who wear fashionable attire don't buy groceries. Momo ponders about her father for a while, and Jinshi tells her he's upset that she isn't conversing with him. Momo spots a chicken skewer place nearby and picks 2 skewers up for Jinshi and herself. While the two eat the chicken skewers, we cut to Gaoshin stumbling upon Surin applying persimmon tannin to a suitcase. Then the two discuss toys briefly, with Surin alluding to Momo being Jinshi's latest and favorite one, and Gaoshin tells Surin that Jinshi shouldn't be able to remain attached to one possession for too long. Afterward, we return to following Jinshi and Momo. Momo's rushing things and Jinshi feels like she wants to split ways with him sooner. Internally, that's Momo's plan. Then Jinshi brings up palace life to Momo and argues that it's better than having a life in the pleasure district. Momo says palace life's great, but she's a bit worried about her adoptive father's health, and Jinshi's taken aback by her response because he thought Momo only cared about medicine and poison. Momo informs Jinshi about Lumen's apothecary expertise and Jinshi asks her if Lumen's a eunuch. Momo confirms that Lumen is a eunuch and received this title from Dowager, the former emperor's mother, because he chose to study abroad, and Momo spots the inn and restaurant Jinshi planned to visit and realizes why he wanted to wear a disguise. Jinshi questions Momo for intel about the Verdigris house's customers, but Momo says she can't give him a thorough response due to confidentiality reasons. This entices Jinshi to ask Momo how he can lower a courtesan's value. Although this is a dreadful subject, Momo informs Jinshi about the ways one can do so. She gives Jinshi the rundown of the low and high-ranking courtesan lifestyle, and overall, Momo states a courtesan's value depends on their purity and argues impregnating a courtesan would reduce their purity levels to 0. Jinshi's shocked by this information. Momo leaves and Jinshi heads into the building he wanted to attend, and Momo has a nightmare and wakes up from it. In the nightmare, we see a man trying to stab her when she was an infant. Lumen asks Momo if she can go to the Verdigris house to complete something for him. Perrin spots Momo and greets her. Perrin and Old Granny argue briefly, giving Momo a chance to flee the Verdigris house. Old Granny spots Momo and Perrin wonders if she's visiting the annex. Momo visits a woman at the annex, and as she prepares something for this woman, Momo reflects on that person's illness and believes she's gotten worse over time. Momo gives this woman her father's medicine but feels it's only providing her with a temporary solution. Then we briefly receive a scene of a Verdigris house worker informing Old Granny that their usual male customers arrived, and Old Granny tells her male worker that she'll inform Mei that he's here. Back to Momo, she reflects on Verdigris house's reputation over the years and how this courtesan she's treating caught syphilis from one of her clients in the past. Moreover, Momo says Lumen arrived at the Verdigris house and wanted to treat this woman properly, but due to his sudden arrival status, no one at the Verdigris house trusted him. With no treatment in sight, this courtesan continued working and her illness kept spreading, resulting in her getting locked up in the annex. Momo says most courtesans get tossed aside when they're incapable of providing the Verdigris house with profit, so she finds this courtesan's results interesting. But before Momo burns some incense, a girl arrives at the annex. She informs Momo that Lacan's here and that Momo should stay away from him. Momo knows Lacan is a frequent yet strange Verdigris house customer. She spots the courtesan placing pebbles on her bed and finds her activities questionable. Later, Mamie arrives at the annex and tells Momo that Lacan's departed. Mamie and Momo go for a stroll and discuss Lacan, Old Granny, and the Verdigris house's principles. While baiting, Mamie reveals she's getting older and Momo questions when Mamie plans to retire from her courtesan career. Mamie tells Momo she wants to continue working as a Verdigris house courtesan for a while longer. Momo wonders if Mangi's in love and proceeds to ponder her abandonment of that human emotion. Afterward, Jinshi and Gyaoshin greet Momo somewhere in the outer pavilion, and he hands Momo a souvenir he received from a weirdo. He wants Momo to deliver it to Surin. Momo tells Jinshi she'll give it to her and returns to work. Later, Surin tells Momo they'll be having a vegetarian feast tonight and informs her that she cannot eat meat or fish. Surin notices Momo's losing focus and snaps her out of her trance. Momo was busy pondering the Annex Kurtzen status. Surin tells Momo to ask Jinshi if she can place her plants in one of his vacant rooms. Momo is not willing to do so because she doesn't want to use Jinshi's rooms as a plant storage facility. This entices the two to have a meaningful discussion regarding nobles, commoners, and missed opportunities. Afterward, Surin has Momo visit an establishment to collect medicine for her. At this location, Momo tells the worker she's come to collect medicine. While she waits, she compares this place to the rear palace's pharmacy. She desperately wants to rummage through this establishment's medicine cabinets. After fangirling at the idea of it all, a court lady Momo previously met named Suri approaches her and wonders what she's doing here. A man approaches Suri and asks her to state her business, and Suri says she's come to resupply the guardhouse with medicine. Momo ponders Suri's relation to the military and wonders why Suri hates her. Momo receives the medicine, delivers it to Surin, and continues working, and she ponders what the medicine is being used for and Jinshi's status and mysterious activities. Jinshi and Gyaoshin discuss Momo's connection with Lumen and Lumen's past work and eunuch status. Then Lucan arrives and tells Jinshi he wants to continue discussing the Kurtzen topic with him. Lucan tells Jinshi that he stole this prize from him and wants Jinshi to give it back. Further, Lucan is willing to pay a hefty price for it, thus willing to abandon the prize if Jinshi refuses to let it go. Lucan brings up his daughter's feelings about the situation to Jinshi. Based on this statement, Jinshi learns that Lucan is Momo's true father. Lucan leaves but tells Jinshi he'll be visiting his daughter soon. Jinshi notices Momo nearby and tells her that Lucan wants to meet with her, and Momo gives Jinshi a distasteful reaction. This entices Jinshi to revoke his previous statement, and he promises Momo that he'll turn down Lucan's demands. Momo thanks Jinshi and departs. However, she's upset that Jinshi discovered the truth. Afterward, Momo stumbles upon a plant garden and starts fangirling over it. Suri notices Momo and promises she won't get her in trouble. Momo and Suri discuss this garden's importance and Suri's ties to it. Suri says she's received permission to plant things here but doesn't know if she's in charge of looking after this garden. Suri tells Momo she's planting something that can aid her in developing a medicine to resurrect people. Momo confronts Suri about it, but Suri says she was joking. Suri and Momo briefly discuss Momo's apothecary skills and Suri's future gardening plans. But that's it for this part. Let me know in the comment if you want the next part of this anime. And as always, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video.